Mate, I appreciate you doing this so much, and yeah,
No?
just good on you for giving up your time. And I think it'll be good to kind of make people a bit more aware of what like Lifeline is and what
Yes.
you do, and hopefully I'll start doing soon, and what everyone there does, and
Yes.
maybe how you came about getting involved and your role there, and yeah, a
Hmm.
bit about like the nature of the calls, not in specifics, but we just talk,
Yeah.
in general, and the
Hmm.
training, and then
Yep.
get into your own journey, like uh, if you're happy to do so. We talk about as much or
Absolutely.
as little as you like. We can go for as long or as little as you like, mate. It is
Yep.
up to you. So,
Cool.
yeah, I guess we start with I met you through my training at Lifeline. So
Yes.
you're one of the awesome volunteer mentors there. So
Yes.
um, what were we doing? It's like a 2 months worth of Wednesday nights on Zoom, and then a full weekend in at the place in Abbotsford, and you were there for all of it.
Yes.
Just awesome the amount of time you put in, and especially the help you gave me, like prior to assessment and stuff like that. So I'm very appreciative of that as well. Yeah, so I guess maybe you want to speak on what Lifeline is, what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a good place to start.
Absolutely. So I answer calls for 13, 11, 14. So essentially what it is we're crisis support and suicide prevention. That's the core of what we do. And we have a mission of an Australia free of suicide. So we want to make sure that in people's darkest hour, they always have someone to talk to on the other end of the phone. And we are just there to listen and hold them where they are, um, and support them in a time of need. And that is at its very core what we do. But at the same time, we don't always get people in their darkest moments. Sometimes people just want to have a chat, or, sometimes something has happened in their world. They're just like, oh, I don't know how to deal with this. I just need to talk it through. So, it's you never know what you're going to get when you pick up that phone. It could be someone in their darkest hour wanting to end their life, or it could be a relationship breakdown, or it could just be someone having a chat. You never know, and that's what keeps the job so interesting.
Yeah, and such an awesome resource for people that are struggling, lonely, anxious, whatever it is. It's just a good point of call for people in need, most specifically mentally, like that are struggling with their
Yes.
mental state a little bit. And there's a big kind of delineation between maybe, I think Lifeline and some other helplines is that we're
Mm.
not offering advice or any medical sort of diagnosis or attention. It's purely someone there to listen to your worries, an ear to lean on,
Yes,
in a
that's
sense.
right. Yeah, and I think if we look at other helplines like Friends Line, for example, or even Beyond Blue or Headspace, I think commonly Beyond Blue is kind of our closest neighbor, as it were, but they are more focusing on the mental health conditions, so your anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, etc. And don't get me wrong, they definitely do deal with suicide and suicidal ideation, but when it comes to Lifeline's vision and our mission, we are solely in that suicide prevention space.
Awesome. Yeah. And that kind of takes me to the next question in regards to the kind of variety of calls you may face on. It's typically a 4 hour shift, right? So
Generally.
when we log in, it's for 4 hours, and within that 4 hours, you are going to potentially get a vast spectrum of people calling, right?
Yes, that's right. It's how much time have we got? Because,
Yeah.
as I was saying before, you could get someone who is having a panic attack. You could get someone who is extremely emotional, and but at the same
Oh, just cut out.
in their moment. And it's something that is, and just through gentle questioning, Hang on a
Sorry, mate. You
second.
cut you cut out for a
No,
good portion of that.
no, it's all right. I can reset it. I noticed that. I'll reset it. It's
All
fine.
right, awesome.
You're all good. No. As I was saying before,
Sorry.
that's right. As I was saying before, with the range of calls that we get, you can get someone who's having a panic attack, or someone who is extremely emotional, or someone who doesn't know why they've called.
Yeah.
We pick up the phone and we say, hello, this is Lifeline, may we help you? And they say, I don't know why I've called.
Mm,
And we just look at that and we say, okay, well, is there something that's happened in the last, 5 minutes that has caused you to reach out for an ear? And it's just that gentle questioning that we offer that slowly unpicks that, unties that knot, as it were. Um, and before you know it, the story comes out, the emotions come out, and the answer presents itself, because at the end of the day, our callers, or help seekers, as we lovingly refer to them as, they are the experts in their story. So
mm,
we just gently invite them to share what it is that's on their mind, and before you know it, there's an answer there.
mm. And I think that's something that the training does really well. To teach you to become an active listener and the
Mm.
techniques to reflect certain feelings or gently nudge someone without being
Yes.
intrusive or forceful towards their own unraveling of whatever that they may be going through. So I guess that is part of why it is an extensive training process. Like I was kind of
Yes.
not shocked, but I wasn't aware that it was going to be so it's long. It is kind of long, but it is like a lot of practice, a lot of repetition of the practice and stuff. Because
Mm.
it's a skill. There is a skill involved as a human being. When I first started, I know I just want to ask a
Yes.
lot of questions. I want to offer a lot of advice. I want to help them get to a solution. But what you learn over time is that, yeah, this easy way of just being a listener is the
Mm.
most effective and probably the most helpful for someone in the situation that they're going through. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be told anything. They just want someone that's yeah, like unobjectively, is that the word? Or yeah, like just
Yeah. Yeah.
unobjectively listening to them and being there for them. So I think that's what the training does a good job of. Um, yeah, of doing. I guess how did you come into how did you come across Lifeline? How did you get started? What was your motivation? Did it come from a place of your own kind of struggles? Or, yeah, if you could talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few angles to this, which I'm more than happy to share with you, Aaron. But I suppose the main thing to share about, before I commenced my time with Lifeline, I unfortunately lost a friend to suicide 2 weeks before starting the training, in September of 2023. So I remember exactly where I was. Actually, I was actually where I am now. I was at home, and my best friend called me. She said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "Yes." And she told me that a friend of mine who we hadn't really spoken to in the last 2 to 3 years had decided to end their life by suicide. And I just thought, and we had the training already locked in, and I was ready to go, and I just kind of thought, is that the universe telling me that I'm doing the right thing, or is it giving me a bit of a nudge?
Mm,
It's you never know whether it's a positive sign or a negative sign, but I think reflecting back on it, and the various emotions that I went through, um, in those first, 3 to 6 months, it was one of those things where I think it's the universe telling me that I am actually doing the right thing. And it's one of those things where if I can help save one soul on the phones, then that's all I can do, and I've done my job. And so that's kind of what led me initially to Lifeline specifically. But I suppose the longer version of this would be that about 6 years ago, I witnessed a traumatic event, across the road on Glenferrie Road here in Melbourne. And it was one of those things where I just, I remember and I'll say this just for comedic purposes because I look back on it and you have to laugh sometimes. If you don't laugh, you'll cry, right? But
Mm.
I remember walking into a bookshop and just looking at the Mr. Men books there, and I didn't actually read it properly, but it turns out it was Mr. Men for adults. And little Miss Shy decided to meet up with Mr. Quiet, and next thing you know, well, things are
Yeah.
happening, right? And anyway, I've walked out of there, and I thought, oh, okay, my childhood's now been ruined. Fantastic. And I've looked across the two lanes of traffic on Glenferrie Road, and I've just I didn't really think much of it, but a part of me just thought, hang on, what's going on here? So I zipped across the road, and that in itself wasn't the safest thing to do, but I went down there and saw this fellow on the ground, and the look that he gave me, I will never forget that for as long as I live. And I just froze in that moment. Some people fight, some people have a flight response, some people have a flop response. I
Mm.
froze.
Mm.
And so, all my first aid training that I hadn't trained up in 3 years didn't come to me, and I just went into logistics mode essentially, and I actually and just went, okay, where have we got people coming in? What's the deal, etc.
Mm.
And I was in that scene for about say an hour and a half or so.
Mm.
In the end, we did get help to him, and I actually went after everything had all happened. Got my details taken down by the police, and went into Spud Bar and ordered a potato. Mind you, the poor girl behind the counter, she probably couldn't understand a word of what I gave to her because it was just basically just gibberish.
Yeah.
And so as I came out of Spud Bar, I saw him being worked on, and I thought, well, this is not good. So went home, and actually called Lifeline for the first time in my life, and I just said, look, this is what's happened, and
Mm.
I don't know what the outcome is. I don't know what the impact is. I had no words in that moment, obviously.
Mm.
And it was just one of those things that, you never know how these things are going to impact you. And it was just one of those things that, you never think you're going to be in that situation, but I suppose the helping side of me just needed to figure this out. And
Mm.
but it actually was a quite an introduction to Lifeline, which I was not expecting in the slightest. But I was so thankful that the fellow who I spoke to on the phone was there.
Mm.
Um, and he did and with the hindsight of the training, he did everything right.
Yeah.
And he helped me in that moment. But yeah, and it was one of those things where I went into work the following day and had a chat to my boss, and he knew that I wasn't very well at all. And
Mm.
he said, "Oh, do you need some help?" I said, "Oh, no, I'll be right. It's all I can get through this,
Mm.
etc." Um, and that was on the Friday, and then on the Monday, I got a call from the police, and they told me that that fellow had unfortunately passed away. And I said, "Look, it is closure in a way." And the police had said, "Look, we've got people who can help you in that moment. Do you need some help?" "Nah, I'll be fine.
Mm.
All good." And for the next, so I'd say next 9 months, I was experiencing semi-regular flashbacks and
Mm.
things like that. And I just thought, oh, this is just what it is. This is just what I have to live with now. And then I had quite a severe flashback at Kooyong Station, just around the corner from work. And
Yeah.
part of the reason why that happened is because the day after the event happened and going into work, I nearly got hit by a car. So it
Uh,
was one of those things where it all just kind of came in at
yeah.
once. And I thought, let's get this sorted out. So
Mm.
that brought in my psychologist, and the work that I've been doing with Nick has been absolutely fantastic over the first 3 years of seeing him. He's worked through it with me. We've figured out what the trigger points were and how it's affected me. But I suppose you know I should have just jumped on it. And
Mm.
hindsight is a very beautiful thing. But yeah, so going through that and then just wanting to just broaden my horizons with the mental health space, because it really
Mm.
did open up an understanding and an appreciation for the field. So just engaging with organisations like Pucker Up and It's Cool to Cry and the Push Up Challenge as well. Um, and yeah, and I suppose just advocating for myself in that space, and then obviously Lifeline came around. So somewhat of a full circle moment. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a very interesting 6 or so years, I can tell you.
Yeah. I'm sorry you experienced both of those things. They both sound like yeah, not easy things to deal with,
No.
especially witnessing something like that firsthand, which
Mm,
well, knock on wood, I haven't had to experience that, but I can't
mm.
imagine what that would be like. So I'm glad you have worked through it and kind of,
Yeah.
done whatever you have needed to do to make yourself be able to deal with that a bit better. And you're right, it's kind of like, well, it has sent as bad as it is, it's set you down this path, which is a very fulfilling and charitable thing to do, and also necessary. I think it's very necessary to have,
Mm,
especially men,
mm,
willing to involve themselves in things like this because it's sometimes it can often be seen as like a weak thing to do to talk about your mental health or to talk about
mm,
suicide, and um, which is kind of one of the things that I took away from the training is that it's more important to talk about it than not talk about it. Every call we take, we have to ask within reason. Like
mm,
the first call that I listened to you take was you didn't get to say it, but that it didn't work. So within reason, you ask, are you thinking about or taking steps to end your life today? So it's just reducing the stigma around that. Yeah, so you have been sent down this path from some kind of like unsavory and kind of very sad and unfortunate circumstances, but I believe it's probably what you're meant to be doing. And I think
mm.
you're very good at it. I've
Thank
had the
you.
pleasure of sitting in and listening to your calls, and you handle them extremely well. So I guess my next question would be, how has it changed your perspective, if it has, or how you deal with mental health, your own mental health, and maybe your aspirations now to pursue further studies or a career in like within the space?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, my time at Lifeline has definitely taught me a lot of resilience because, the calls that we get can be very impactful. And it's almost an art form in a way that you don't take the calls home with you.
Mm,
But with that being said, we are all human, and so there are some calls that are going to stay with you for, however long it may be. But it's also just acknowledging that and saying, okay, well, this call that I took, 2 days ago, I'm still having thoughts about it. So do I need to kind of go to my next phase of help and go, okay, do I need to call in a debrief from my bosses and just talk it through? So it's just that's one thing that has definitely taught me in just looking after myself and you know I'll say this until the end of time. You hear it all the time, remember to put your own mask on first before you start assisting others.
mm,
And that is so true in the Lifeline space. We need to make sure that we are 100% right for our help seekers, because if we're not going to be there 100% for them in their worst hours. Um, I suppose when it comes to career and aspirations, I've got aspirations to go into, the mental health and suicide prevention space. And it's just a case of, doing work with the push-up challenge that I was saying earlier and climbing the ladder there. But also with Lifeline, they've offered me so much in the way of professional development
mm.
and climbing the ladder. So I think for me, it's just a case of, being able to walk before I can run. I mean, I've only been doing this for 2 years and I'm looking at all these grand plans, but many of our lovely centre supervisors look at me and go, it'll happen in time, Jack. Just
Yeah.
relax,
Mm.
But just, have that aspiration. It's great, but don't burn yourself out um, when you don't need to. So,
Mm. And especially in a place like Lifeline, where you can kind of do as many hours as you like within reason, right? Like you could be spending a
yes.
lot of time in there, but I feel like it is something you need to manage with your own mental health, which is something I've just kind of realized having switched from landscaping to studying psychology, even just learning about the subject material and then talking a lot about suicide and listening to some calls and stuff like that, it can affect you. Like if you're not
Mm.
aware that you're taking this stuff on, you have to be very mindful that it is heavy subject matter,
Mm.
and it affects people's lives. So, but I think you have you're like a part of the furniture there. So I think you are definitely on your way to becoming a solidified part of that kind of upper echelon of training and or like running things and stuff like that. So I don't think you have any issues
Yes.
there. What's the push-up challenge?
So the push-up challenge is an initiative run by or created by Nick Hudson, who's a Perth fellow.
Hmm.
He was going through some challenges of his own about 10 years or about 8 years ago now, 8, 9 years ago. And he just looped in a mate and just said, "Hey, I need to do something to help with my mental health." And I can't remember how they initially came up with it, but I think they just, did a bit of training down in the park somewhere or what have you. And they said, "Oh, let's just kind of do some push-ups or what have you." And essentially what the challenge is, it's the amount of push-ups to represent the people who lost their lives to suicide in the previous statistics year over a certain period of days in the month of June. So for context, last year's numbers were, or this year's numbers, I should say, were 3,249
Mhm.
over 23 days. Um, so that's to represent the amount of people who lost their lives to suicide in 2023. So, and
Mm.
that's to raise money for Beyond Blue, for Headspace, not for Beyond Blue this year, for Headspace, for Lifeline, and for Movember.
Awesome.
And so and that's the challenge that's run every year. And they also recently launched in Canada, of all places, as well. So that is a yearly event that's been going for 9 years, 10th year next year. And yeah, it's raised millions and millions of dollars for mental health.
That's awesome. Um, an initiative I hadn't heard of, so I'll definitely check it out and hopefully sign up. And I get terrible push-ups. My form's bad, and I'm a long guy, so I struggle to punch them out.
Well, this is the thing, Aaron. The push-up challenge. The push-ups are there. But they're actually irrelevant. And
Yeah,
when it comes to doing the challenge, I mean, I've been doing it for 5 years now. Push-ups are irrelevant, even if it's 3,249 squats or whatever it
yeah,
may
right.
be. The numbers are the most important thing. So,
Yeah.
and even if you wanted to mix it up, so the number is the focus in that month. And yeah, but I'm all for people who want to raise awareness for that. And yeah, I'll be right there with you if you choose to participate next year.
Well, I'm in. I think it's probably important to note that suicide is probably the biggest killer of men between the ages of like 18 and 40 or something like that. So
That's right. Yeah.
something that like definitely needs to be addressed more than it is currently. Like, oh, I don't see much about it or hear much about it. Um, I don't know whether it's at a government level or even like online, you do a little bit, but it seems to go through cycles. There might be an initiative that gets pushed and then it drops back, and then there's an initiative that gets pushed,
Mm.
drops back. But for something that's such a big statistic, yeah, well, I'm glad there's people like you that are spending a lot of time dedicated to it, and there's things like Lifeline. But it seems like we could be doing a little bit more, potentially at like a government level, where there's money and access and stuff like that. Oh, hold on. I'll just change my uh, camera over. My other camera's died. Sorry, mate.
That's right.
Um, hopefully we come back. There we go. Um, yeah. So I don't know, because Lifeline, the funding for Lifeline, a lot of it has to get done within house for that actual center, right? Like, so
Yes.
nationally it's funded and there's some money involved, but then for the
Yes.
center itself to provide, say, coffee or tea or pay the rent, I think even,
Yes, that's right. And
yeah, which is crazy.
we we are yeah, it is crazy. We actually we actually have to pay a fee to be a part of the Lifeline banner. But also just for context, we are funded by well not funded, but we're governed by Lifeline Canberra,
Okay.
and they're one of the biggest lifeline centres in Australia. So yeah, we're
Mhm.
safe as houses in that regard.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, it's one of those things where mental health is expensive, and so there is a part of me that understands why the government are apprehensive to fund this because there is so much money that does need to go into this space. But then on the other side of the coin, you can't lie with the statistics. We're going to lose, 7 men to suicide in this next 24-hour period. So, with the other two being female. So, it's just one of those things where, I
Mm,
I don't have the answers, but we just hope that, the more awareness that does come to the area of mental health and suicide, we just hope it's a small snowball effect and eventually the government catches up. But look,
yeah.
being at Lifeline, we're the little centre that could, so we're just doing what we can.
That's awesome. It's such a good spot and such a good vibe for a place that deals with some dark stuff, but is just like
Yes.
friendly people, lovely people. That's throughout the whole training. Everyone is just awesome, and it's such a well organized system that, yeah, I hope more people get involved and the numbers continue to grow because it's such a good resource. And I know, like, I've really enjoyed my time, like, just yeah, on the Zoom and even in person. It's an awesome center. Um, and you're right, mental health is such a complex issue. Like the numbers just are what they are, and people are dealing with such complex mental stuff that
Mm,
yeah, whether it's a matter of just being there or actually fixing a problem is a hard thing to delineate between, I think, and something we
mm,
may never wrap our heads around because it is so
mm.
complex.
Yes.
Yeah, and even beginning to study it, you're like, oh yeah, we are very complex people with a range of different factors that influence how we think, how we feel, and then what we do with those thoughts and feelings. So,
Mm.
yeah, but good to have the resources there. So I guess, how do you deal and do you have some little tips or suggestions that you use to say you've had a tough shift and you're having a bit of a
Yep.
tough time? What's some stuff you do to kind of look after yourself in regards to your mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, it's one of those things where I think it's actually really important to just sit. Well, we use an expression at Lifeline, sit in the mud, right?
Mm,
And I think it's really important if you've had a tough call for a period of time, whether it be 24 to 48 hours, this is just in my context, but actually sit in that mud and just go, okay, there's obviously something that just needs to process, so actually giving it time to move through.
mm,
Um, and obviously, if it was a traumatic call, you obviously jump on it pretty quickly. But I think in those calls where you think, oh, I don't know if this is sitting with me or not, but I'm just going to sit with it and just see if it moves through. And then obviously, if not, then we go further. But I think for me, in the way of self-care, a good coffee is definitely a good self-care moment. But also,
right.
just going to the gym and just throwing around some heavy steel and just going, look, and I think that it's just one of those things where if I've, done a hard weight session or a boxing session or whatever it may be, you do feel better coming out of it. And it just helps reset the mind for the rest of the day, and it just gives you that bit of relief. But also, jumping on the podcasts and listening to podcasts from 10 years ago that you can't let go of. So but I think for me, it's just having a good coffee and having a good training session is my self-care.
Yeah, it's amazing what exercise can do for the mind. And I think it's probably the most underutilized antidepressant that we have or anti-anxiety tool.
Mm,
But it's kind of a big step between the depressed state and getting yourself to be motivated or getting yourself to the point of exercise is probably the issue.
mm,
But once you've done it,
yes.
you do feel a whole lot better. So
Yeah.
that's an awesome tip for people to help with the mental clarity is definitely some exercise. And lifting heavy weights is a good one, especially for
Yeah.
guys, I think. It's just
Yeah.
something about moving your body against the resistance, which is really good.
Mm, yeah.
So that's awesome. And now also, the other night you were telling me, so you suffer from cerebral palsy.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so do you want to talk a bit about that? Like when is that, do you know from birth that that's like a thing? And then obviously I asked you this before, but there seems to be a spectrum of like diagnoses, and then you let me feel a cool thing in your head that I
Yep.
knew nothing about. So yeah, if you want to talk a bit about that, if you're comfortable, I think that's
Absolutely.
a really interesting part of your story and just kind of even a testament of the kind of guy you are that you're dedicating so much of your time to helping other people whilst dealing with something that I imagine is requires some attention and is something you learn to live with, right?
Yeah, exactly right. So there's two conditions there, Aaron, that you've alluded to. So obviously with the cerebral palsy, so that is a condition that is generally onset from birth.
Mm.
And the result that is a result of trauma to the brain. So it could be loss of blood flow. It could be other sort of issues after you've been born, the first couple of
Yeah.
days or months.
The prenatal
Um,
stuff, right?
Prenatal stuff,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, and essentially, what it results in, it results in weakness in your muscles. So, in my context, so I've got low tone cerebral palsy down the left side. So my left side is weaker than my right. And at the same time, though, if you were to see me walking around, you wouldn't know it, but there are other people who have entire stiffness in their bodies, so they're in motorized wheelchairs and things like
Yes.
that, and it also affects their speech. Um, but in my context, it's just a lack of strength in the left-hand side, which definitely flares up when I'm doing unilateral stuff at the gym. My right-hand side, I'm absolutely fine, and then when it comes to my left, I'm hating life. Um, so it's one of those things where it's not a curable condition, unfortunately, but it's just one thing that is you just maintain it. It doesn't generally get worse, but it's just something that you monitor and you just keep building up those neuro pathways on the left-hand side because at the end of the day is what the issue is, right? It's the messages from the brain to the left side of the body that are not firing as much as they should.
Right.
So it's just working on that side of things. Now, that quote "cool thing in my head," I'll explain what that
Sorry.
is.
I mean, I'm sorry. Probably should have phrased that a bit differently, but it was
No,
an interesting experience.
no, and now
Sorry, mate.
for the sake of the podcast, you wouldn't see this, but I am actually smiling at Aaron when I'm talking about this. So I also suffer from a condition called hydrocephalus. Now, what that is essentially is it's a lack of flow of your cerebral spinal fluid. So we've all got spinal fluid, obviously, and it goes all around your body. So it keeps everything kind of moving through it. It stops wastage. It just kind of cleans your brain and cleans your body essentially. And so when I was born, and it kind of goes hand in hand, the cerebral palsy and the hydrocephalus. So
Right.
what essentially happened was I had a blockage in the brain, and so the spinal fluid wasn't flowing. So what they did is they put in a device called a shunt, which is something that it basically fills with the fluid, and then it just goes click, and then it drains out via tubing that is also in my body. Um, it goes down my neck, and there's a cavity in my gut that where it fills, and it just filters around. So it basically forces the spinal fluid through my body, which is something that I obviously, well, I don't have to think about it, but the device is there to do it.
Mm.
Whereas your body, Aaron, would just be doing it naturally without any sort of concern there.
Yeah, got you.
So that's where the shunt comes in, and that's something that I have to kind of keep an eye on. Generally, shunts have a lifespan of about 10 to 15 years.
Mm.
Um, and if I was to have persistent headaches for say, 3 or 4 days, that is the pressure of the spinal fluid building up. And so if something's gone wrong, and it's just a very simple thing of okay, you go into the hospital, you get it fixed up, and then you're on your way. I say it flippantly, it's a bit more involved than that, but
Yeah.
for what it is, on paper, it's very straightforward.
Mm.
In theory, it's a little bit more than that. It's CT scans, it's
Yeah.
X-rays, it's MRIs, but
It
it,
is your
it's
brain
it,
at the end of the day.
it that's right. It's
Yeah.
yeah, low key brain stuff, but it is very it's straightforward. I've
Yeah.
been through it a couple of times in the
Okay.
last year, unfortunately. So it is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got a great attitude towards it as well. Like when I was asking you questions, stuff, you're very open and
Hmm.
approach it with a good sense of, openness. So, um,
Yes.
and so those two things, like cerebral palsy and the other condition, sorry, it's a hard mouthful.
Hydrocephalus, yes.
Yeah. So they often occur together or are subsequent to whatever trauma or whatever's occurred to cause the other one.
Yeah, generally,
Okay.
'cause the hemorrhage in the brain, which was the cause of the hydrocephalus, I was saying before, trauma officers to the brain, so they go hand
Yeah.
in hand in this case, yeah.
Got you. And we talked yesterday about creatine and how there's research maybe into how that like cognitively is really a lot of it's
Mm,
just coming out how handy that is and how useful it is to help your brain with the neural pathways. And I'm not quite sure if
mm,
that's got to do with like keeping water in there or keeping it healthy. I don't know because I know creatine is holding water in your muscles. Um,
mm.
is there medication required in the other two that you have to consistently take as well?
No, it's
Okay,
very much, I don't need to take anything more for that, but I think,
awesome.
on the creatine side, it wasn't necessarily for the neuro sort of side of things. It was more
Mm,
for the weightlifting side.
yeah.
But I suppose it's just an additional benefit that is there, and so
Mm.
it's just yet another reason to go into taking it.
Mate, get jacked at the same time.
This is free.
Yeah, I've heard it's also like if you're taking anti-anxiety, antidepressants like SSRIs,
Yes.
creatine is also meant to supposedly enhance the effects of those as well. So, yeah, really interesting. And it's the safest, most tested supplement that you can take. So,
Hmm.
are you taking some protein as well? Are you on the protein powders?
On the powders as well,
Good
yeah.
on you,
So I've got
mate.
got a few things going there as well. So
Multivitamins, I love it.
yeah, yes, exactly. That's right.
How often are you going to the gym?
So generally four times a week. So
Yeah,
twice a week weights, and then the other two, bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu on the floor, and a bit of
awesome.
bit of grappling on the floor. But funnily enough, it's really interesting. I've been doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu for about 6 months,
Love it.
and it's actually really exposed the weakness in my left hand side.
100%.
So that just actually it just makes me more so want to look into it um, and think, okay, what can we do in the case of, trying to improve it? And even if it's a stretching routine or what have you. But, I must admit, it is very amusing when, my trainer Tim and I are rolling on the floor, and you do get clients of an older vintage around in their
Mm.
40s and 50s. They come in, they look at us and they go, should we ask? No, 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 it's fine. It's all good. But I suppose on the other end, it's also given where I'm not sure if we mentioned that I was visually impaired, but I'll declare it straight off the bat.
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
I
so
forgot
I
about that one. Sorry.
no, I've got a lot of things going on in this old brain of mine, but
Yeah,
yeah, so I'm also visually impaired since birth as well. So I've got optic atrophy, which is a malfunction of the optic nerve.
got you.
Um, and so I've had that from since birth, and it's pretty stable now, which is
Yeah,
which is good. Just on the line of legally blind there, but
yeah.
I get around okay.
Mm.
But the thing is, especially with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu side, I don't need to see anything.
No,
So it actually is really good just for that self-awareness, well, just for the self-awareness side and going, okay, where is my opponent? What's he doing? But also getting a good workout at the same time. So it is good fun, but it's brutal at the same time. Yeah.
mate. If I would suggest anything to anyone, an exercise or a sport, and I haven't done a heap of it. I have a mate who owns a gym, so I used to go in for privates with him and did a few classes over a 4 to 6 month period of time, and I
Mm.
loved it. But like anything,
Yes.
sticking with it, I would suggest
Mm.
BJJ to anyone for physical strength and mental. The mental clarity you feel after rolling with
Yes.
someone for a few rounds, doing the drills, drilling. It is a
Mm.
great antidepressant, anti-anxiety. It's almost it is doing a hard weight session, but with the cognitive element to it where you're solving a problem
Yes.
like on the ground. So I
That's right.
imagine for your cerebral palsy, whether it is also good for training those pathways in regards to your left-hand side and kind of having to
Mm.
figure out where to put your body, where to defend from. And as you get into it, if you stick to it a lot through the thing, um,
Yes.
it is going to be awesome for you, I think. And I'm no doctor,
Yes.
but
No, but
if I was to take a guess, those neural pathways are going to be forced to figure out the problem that is jujitsu,
mm.
grappling, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm rapt to hear that you're giving that a go, and it's so much fun.
Mm. Yeah, it is. And I think, and you're 100% right, Aaron. It's just, again, it's just forcing those neural pathways to fire when I'm in those situations. And I think the most important thing, and this is one thing I learned right from day one, just not to panic as well. And just
Yeah,
going, look, this is where I'm at. Don't panic. Just figure out what's going on and just make it work. But again, it, given the exposure that it's given to my left side, it's just made me want to look into it even more.
awesome, mate. And when you train, are you doing specific exercises that focus on your condition, or are you just doing regular workout routine that someone will do like off the bat?
Yeah, so I'm doing it just a general routine, but there are definitely unilateral exercises in there as well. So it could be a dumbbell bench press, it could be one-legged hamstring curls and things like
Yeah.
that. So it's just a case of, and I try and avoid doing things like a lat pull down, for example, where my one side will compensate for the other.
Mm.
Obviously, I appreciate that they are exercises that need to be done. But
Yeah.
where I can, I will definitely try and lean towards the unilateral because it doesn't give me anywhere to hide, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
so yeah, I'm definitely enjoying that side of it. Mind you, it's not easy, it's not fun at all.
Mm.
But it is something that I
Yeah. And I'm sure super beneficial and necessary to do. Doing anything hard is always going to suck, but in the long term, it's kind of what you need to do. Where are we at? All right, maybe if we can talk a little bit about, so say someone wants to join Lifeline, what can they expect from the training? What kind of person are you looking for, if there is any? Or yeah, if you could talk a little bit about that, because I think the training is super specific and super important, and the length and the cost as well might turn some people off, but I believe it's super beneficial to the job, but to you as a person. Like it's so applicable to daily life and how you communicate with people. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that and the process. Oh, I can't hear you, bud. And you're frozen a little bit. You're still frozen. You're back? I can't hear.
just sort this out.
Oh, there you go. You're
Okay,
back.
okay, righto,
So the
perfect.
training.
Hang on, hang on. This is a beauty of life. This is a beauty of pre-recording, my friend. A beauty of pre-recording. Okay, so at the end of the day, we just want people who are compassionate and who want to give back to the community. So listening is at the core of what we do at Lifeline, and so we are just looking for people who are compassionate and who are happy to listen to people in their darkest moments, really. And obviously, we want people um, who want to, well, as I say, they want to give back, and it may seem like there's not many prerequisites, but at the same time, we don't need them to be. We're looking for compassion over skills, basically. Um, and it's interesting because in the training, it's a lot of unlearning. As you were saying
Yeah.
before, Aaron, we constantly want to jump in and give our 2 cents worth, and we want to continue the conversation, and a lot of it is just holding space and how wonderful silence is, um, and how much of a benefit it can be to a conversation. And we just want people who want to give back to the community and be there for people.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. A lot of it is, you're right, unlearning like communication skills that we're just kind of probably yeah, socially programmed to do to be sociable people. And so like talk about the length of the training,
Hmm.
like the duration and the kind of phase. There's a few phases, right? That if someone is
Correct.
listening and they want to go through it, like just for them to
Yep.
understand what kind of training and phases you're going to go through.
Sure. So our training is called CSWT, so that's Crisis Supported Workforce Training. Okay, and so what that basically entails, it runs in 3 phases. So our first phase of CSWT is the classroom setting, as I like to call it. So it's 10 weeks and 8 sessions are over Zoom, and it's with your cohort of around 20 to 25 people. Then we have a 2-day weekend workshop at our lovely centre here in Abbotsford in Nar. And we in those 2 days we discuss the Lifeline framework, and we go into suicide, which is obviously a very heavy topic. So we want to make sure that if someone has been activated by the content, we want to make sure that we're there on site to help them out. Um, in the sessions before we go into the framework, it's a lot of micro skills. So reflection of feeling, reflection of meaning, mirroring, paraphrasing, summarizing, all those things that we use on the phones to help validate the help seeker's story and just to show that we are understanding of what they're experiencing and that we're right there with them. And then the second half of it is working through policies and procedures. So looking at help seekers who may be in a domestic violence situation, who may be in a child protection issue, who may have there may be some crime and emergency in there.
You're going quiet again, mate. Your microphone just
That we
turned
need to
on
learn,
again.
and we need to learn what the processes are.
Yeah. And that was part of it, which I was kind of unaware of that we'd have to talk about is like, um, yeah, the kind of issues around maybe domestic violence, child stuff, and then, yeah, the imminent stuff is where it gets a bit full on, where you're thinking like this is
Mm.
a situation where potentially it's life or death, and that can
Yes.
be a very confronting thing to have to talk about and learn about, and think that you may one day be on the end of a call that is, yeah, surrounds that kind of issue. But
Yes.
again, why it's such an important resource for people um, to do.
Mm.
That's awesome. So if someone wants to get involved, I think they usually do a few rounds a year, right? Of like induction and training.
Correct. So we generally do three intakes a year.
Okay.
And actually, as you mentioned it, Aaron, I've neglected the other two
Yeah.
rounds of CSWT.
Yeah.
So the first phase that I just mentioned there, that's the first initial training, and
Yeah.
so that's where you learn the content and the policies and procedures. Then you go into stage two, which is five shifts on the phones and you're taking live calls, and so you have a mentor beside you writing notes and writing, instructions, whether it be, try this or say this, or you're doing a really good job or whatever. So you're supported on the phones for five shifts, and then from there, then you go into your internship phase, which is 56 hours logged in on the phones where you're on your own and you've got, e-learning and what have you to do. And then you go through a final role play of a non-imminent suicide, and then you will go through a knowledge check of Lifeline and what we do as a business. So, yeah, but again, it's one of those things where, whilst it may seem like there's a lot to consume there, we are with you every step of the way, and we're
Mm.
not going to let you just, we're not going to drop you on the deep end and watch you flounder. So you're supported in every step.
Yeah, super supportive training, super insightful, and even the assessment was done, I think, really well and set you up for uh, like success in terms of like when you're going to be answering calls, what to do.
Mm.
So yeah, it is. If you were committed to it, it's such a good thing to do, rewarding, and also yeah, you're giving back. So I think more people should do it, especially if you're empathetic, you want to give back, and that's kind of the way you're inclined. I think it's the best thing you can do, and a good use of your time. Um, I won't keep you for too much longer, but you mentioned you see a psychologist occasionally.
Occasionally, a
Yeah,
bit on an ad hoc sort of basis at the moment.
yeah.
But as I mentioned before, I was definitely seeing Nick quite regularly to
Mhm.
work through that traumatic event. But
You just cut out again, mate. Sorry. Where's your audio? No, I can't hear. No. Is it a mic or the computer? Still nothing. Oh, oh, there you
oh,
go.
there we
You're
go.
back.
No. Sometimes my computer, what it'll do, it'll freak out. It'll go, oh, I can't deal with this very much, and then take it'll
Oh,
take
so
30
it's a
seconds.
it's the computer's microphone.
Oh, it's not so much. It's not the computer's microphone. It's more the computer system. It just like so.
Oh, yeah.
I may have
That's
a
fine.
few. I'll have tabs open, that'll happen. So about 30 seconds, it'll go, oh, no, hang on, I just need a reset.
I would
Oh,
just get you to talk before I let you go, maybe on the benefits of seeing when necessary, like obviously using the resources, free resources like Lifeline and stuff. But even then, resources like Lifeline will point you towards points of care, like a doctor to get a mental health care plan and to make use of that to then see a therapist, as Lifeline can't talk you through situations in depth and make
mm.
diagnosis. So I don't know if you want to talk to and how your experience was with actually utilizing a psychologist or a therapist, just for men that may be contemplating it. Because I
Yeah.
know, especially for men, it can be a hurdle to get across to actually going and booking something to talk to someone about your feelings.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I think generally making that first initial call to a psychologist office and speaking with the admin team, that's generally the hardest thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's putting your hand up and saying, I'm not doing too well, I need help. And if I think to my admin team that I dealt with my practice, the practice manager was amazing, and she just said, "Look, this is what it is. This is how it works." And she linked me in with Nick, and before we knew it, we were on our way. But honestly, reaching out is the hardest part. But once you've done that, you're on your way. And I just would say to any man who may be struggling with anything. It doesn't matter how small it is. Just reach out. And at the end of the day, if you're not ready to reach out to a psychologist as yet, utilize services like Lifeline. Whilst we're not trained therapists, we're here to support you and meet you where you're at. So if it's a case of I'm not necessarily ready to speak to someone on an ongoing basis, just using that once-off crisis support service is something that could be of benefit to you. So, yeah, reach out and show the strength that we know you have, because it's not weakness, it's not weak to speak. It's actually quite strong of you to speak out. But at the end of the day, reach out to us at Lifeline, and we're here to help you. But yeah, as I say, put on your own mask first before you start assisting others.
Yeah. Great stuff, mate. And what's the number for Lifeline if someone wants to call?
Yeah, 13, 11, 14. And we
13,
also have we also have a text service as well. So
Perfect.
0477 13 11 14. So if you're not ready to talk to someone, you can always text us any time of the day or night.
Which is such a good service as well, because even that phone call might be a lot for someone. So just being able to text a friendly person that, and I know someone in our cohort was Ben or something.
Yes.
Yeah, was
Matthew, that was
Matthew.
Matthew.
Sorry, yeah, was came from the text line. So yeah, both really good resources. And I'll mention that although we're not trained therapists and we can't, there's a limit to what we can do. We can look up other resources for you. We can point you in the direction of like some domestic violence stuff and other resources that if you
Mm,
need, we can search those up through our system. We have a system that will allow us to do that. So that kind of cuts out some work for you if you're struggling to find somewhere to go or some help.
mm.
That is part of what we can do, right?
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
exactly right. And I think I heard it somewhere beautifully, and I think it's right. We are the GPs in the mental health world, in
Mm.
that you come to us and we'll talk through your problems and help you out. But if you need a next step, then we're more than happy to refer you on. So it's we're there for you at any time of the day or night.
Mate, you are a legend. And yeah, thanks for what you do there. Thanks for your help with me before my assessment. You were kind enough to kind of run through stuff with me and use some of your own time. So I think what you're doing is so awesome and keep crushing the gym. And I'm really excited to hear about your jiu-jitsu journey. And I hope you can stick with it because I think that'll be so beneficial for you and anyone that does it in many aspects of their in their life. I think it's a great mental and physical exercise. So that's awesome, bro. Um, and yeah, I'll be seeing you soon for my shifts, hopefully. So I'll get in contact with you and we'll figure something out. But I really appreciate you taking your time with me today. Lifeline, it is so important.
100%. Thanks for having me, Aaron.
You're a legend, mate. I'll speak to you soon, okay?
All right, too easy. All right, look after yourself, mate.
Enjoy the rest of your day.